America might have just destroyed one of the world's poorest countries after the US has placed 50% tariffs onto them. Lesotho in Africa is a really small country that has one of the smallest GDPs in the world of just 2 billion US dollars. And something worth knowing, the US is their largest trading partner. In fact, the US made up over 10% of their entire GDP last year, as they did over $230 million of trade with the US. And obviously that means that Lesotho is very much so dependent on the US to stay alive. But now that the US has placed 50% tariffs onto Lesotho, Lesotho would have to pay over $100 million extra to do the same amount of trade with the US as they did last year. And as I said, Lesotho only has a $2 billion GDP, so they definitely can't afford to pay that, which means that the trade won't happen and Lesotho will lose a huge portion of their GDP, and they won't have anyone else to sell their resources to. Now, the reason this is a big deal is because it means that most people in Lesotho will be affected financially, with a large percentage of people losing their jobs and income. According to the report, the products and resources that Lesotho sells to the US directly provide hundreds of thousands of jobs in Lesotho. And if the factories closed due to the tariffs, then all of those people would now be unemployed. And considering the population of Lesotho is just 2 million, it could have a huge effect and the country could literally collapse. For example, if these factories shut due to US tariffs and these workers didn't have a job, then anybody that made money from these workers wouldn't have an income either. Whether it's property owners that rent houses to the workers or it's people that sell food to the workers, etc. So with the US placing 50% tariffs onto Lesotho, which Lesotho absolutely can't afford because of how poor they are, it means that Lesotho is very likely going to collapse and they won't have much of a country left. But anyways, you can leave me a follow for some more global news like this.